This week, we'll start by discussing the notions between aggregation versus composition. So this is actually a very interesting topic because it's more at the design level that you have to make a decision about your design before you can actually go ahead and implement your Java classes faithfully, accordingly. And I'm going to do a number of exercises together with you to tell the difference between them and also to give you some design problems so you can make a decision which one you want to go for, either for sharing using aggregation or non-sharing using composition. We'll get into the details. If time permitted, maybe in the last 1/3 of this week, we'll also start discussing the most exciting topic of the course, which is about inheritance. If we have time, we'll do so. If we don't, then we'll definitely start the topic from week number 7. Okay, let's now go over the learning outcomes for this week. At the end of the module for aggregation and composition, you'll learn about callback value, which is something I wish I could discuss last week, but didn't have time. But this week we'll definitely start with the callback value. So we're going to see the difference between primitive versus reference argument values, especially how they work at the runtime. And we can talk about aggregation versus composition. We'll introduce to you the terminology and also at the modeling level what they really mean. You want to visualize exactly what's going to happen at the runtime before you can actually implement them. That's something we'll do first. And we'll first talk about aggregation, especially about how you can build sharing links or aliases. Right? We talk about aliasing in the earlier part of this course. Whenever you have the same objects whose address has been stored in multiple variables, diagrammatically you actually got several pointers coming into the object box. So that's really about sharing links or aliases. And we want to see how we can use these aliases to navigate between objects. So that's something you want to be able to visualize as well. And we talk about composition, and specifically we want to see how you can prevent sharing by using something called copy constructor. And the copy constructor may have to be implemented at different levels depending on how your objects depend on each other. That's something we'll see. We'll see some simple examples, and maybe and also in your later labs you'll definitely get some exercise as well. Okay, and then we'll talk about design decision. That will be some exercise for you, whether you want to use aggregation or composition, and then you want to be able to justify your decision. I'll give you a feel about how you may justify. All right, let's now start with callback value. Let's now review what we know already. Consider the general form of a method call to some mutated method with the context object, let's say CO, and argument value arg, right? Arg. And this is the general method call form. You can see you got a dot notation over here. You got context objects CO, and also you got the method, and also you got argument value. Of course, in general, argument value may be none, or it can be more than one. But we just put one just for illustration. And let me be a little bit more specific about the context of making such general method call. Okay. So this is definitely something we spoke about before when we talk about exception. We talk about caller and callee. And let me review that as well. Okay. Let's say we got two classes over here. We got class A, we got class B. And let's not worry about declaring public. I just don't have space on my notes, right? You should imagine that we still follow the same principle. Every attribute you declare should be private. And constructor, accessors, mutator, they should be mostly public. There might be some private methods as helper method you may want to declare, but it's not very common. Okay, so in class A, we got a method called M. And then we got some type T. You can think about T refers to some existing class, right? And also param. I just want to tell you that at the time of declaring some method, we call this variable the parameter. Okay, I'll make those quickly. Okay, so this part over here, this part here is about the declaration or definition of a method. Okay, so this part here is the declaration, or you can say also definition at the same time in the body of the implementation. Declaration, definition of a method. And of course, this method is expected to be used later. So at the same time, it will be the callee with respect to some method call, which we'll see in class B in a moment. And also, it's really important to really know that the terminology we are using, whenever we are referring to the definition, like a header of the method, we talk about parameter. Okay. try to be as precise as possible. Sometimes you may actually, some Java developer or some programmers may use parameter and arguments interchangeably. But I will, since we're computer scientists or engineers, we want to be as strict as possible. Okay, so whenever you're referring to the variables in the context of the definition for the method, you call them parameter. When you're using them, that should be called arguments, right? That's the difference. And one more thing to remind you, this part over here, when you talk about return type, name, and also the parameter, so that's called the header of the method, right? That's called the header. The header of the method, which does not include the implementation body of the method. All right, so that's about the callee side or the definition side. What about the symmetric end? Let's and then for that one, I'm going to use another color here. So this will be this part. So this is the caller, which will make an object of type A, and then which will refer to this method, this class A, and then it's going to try to call M, which is referring to this M. We have seen this caller-callee relations back in the exception lecture, so I don't need to bother you too much about it. But I do want to highlight. So this is where we actually use the method, right? So this is the usage of a method or application context. Sometimes people say application context of a method because you're trying to apply that. And as we learned before, this is where the caller is, right? You can see we're trying to connect what you learned previously, which is important. Okay, and just go back to the slides. Go back to what I talked about in the slides. Here, the CO over here is the context objects. And this arc over here is actually simply some value which we assume actually are declared in the scope. We'll see some concrete example in just a moment. But this arc over here, we don't call that parameter. We call that arguments. So that's why I want you to be as precise as possible. Whenever we talk about the declaration or definition, we refer to the variable as parameter, input parameter. On the other hand, whenever we talk about, let's say, application or usage, then we talk about the variable being arguments. Okay, so that's something I want you to be clear. Okay, let's now go back to the slides and see what's more about the call by value. Why do we need to revisit this caller-callee context? Argument variable arg is not passed directly to the method call. So what I did earlier, especially in the first 2 weeks when we did a review tutorial series, whenever I'm trying to trace the method call, just recall what I did. Okay, I'm just going to show you quickly. So when we are passing this argument value over here, I said every occurrence of paren is simply going to be replaced by arg. And if you see anywhere in the method body that's used to be paren, I'll just replace them by arg. Right? That's what we did earlier. However, that's not exactly precise, but it will serve the purpose of review. But now, having gone this far into the advanced OOP course, you deserve to know the entire story. So that's why we need to study them more carefully, right? So from now on, whenever you're trying to trace the method call, you may still use the old way by replacing every occurrence of the parameter by this specific argument value. That's okay, but you also need to know what's exactly being done behind the scene. That's something we're going to discuss. Okay, let's see. So instead, argument variable arg is passed indirectly. So not just direct replacement. Okay, it should be indirectly. In what way? A copy of the value stored in arg is made and passed to the method call. Right? So that's the formal definition for the call by value. However, we want to be very careful over here because the arg over here is simply some value. But in Java, we talk about there are two kinds of types, either primitive type or reference type, meaning that values can either be primitive value or reference value. Let's now distinguish them one by one. Okay, let's say in the case of primitive type, so it can be integer, character, Boolean, and etc. Just notice that string is not a primitive type, right? Just keep emphasizing that. So in the case of call by value, so in that case, the same principle. Whenever you want to pass maybe some integer value as the arguments, at the callee end, you're not going to replace a parameter, but instead you're going to assign some value to it using the assignment operator. So that's why we say copy the argument store value, like maybe integer value 2, character value j, and boolean value true, and etc. Let me just go over the bullet points. I mean, it might be a little bit abstract up to now, but that's okay. I just want to go over the principle together with you to see the big picture. I'll show you concrete example twice. Okay, just bear with me. So the first case is about primitive type. Okay, you just copy the value for the primitive type. What about reference type? So this is the usual confusion. Whenever you say you want to copy the value of a reference type, do you copy the object entirely, including all its attributes, or do you simply just copy its reference? It should be the latter, meaning that we only copy its address for the objects. Okay, so the reference type can be string, and can be points, can be person, can be vaccine, can be vaccination site, can be any class that you declare. Either you declare in your projects or any class that comes from the Java library, right? Either way. What should we do? We also follow the principle of call by value. Notice that for both primitive value and also for reference type, for both cases, we have to apply the principle of call by value. In the case of reference type, I'm going to copy the value of the address rather than the value of all the attributes in the objects. So there's a critical difference you want to make. Let's now visualize this principle quickly. Okay. Let me say one more thing over here. So whenever you're making a call, so what does call by value really mean? Let me just highlight it. Okay. So you got this arguments over here. Okay. And then you got this parameter over here. You can see the orange mark up to now. Okay. So whenever you are passing and arguments, so think about when you go from here to the parameter, what does it really mean? Okay, so that's what call by value should really do for you behind the scene. Okay, for this one here, call by value. And the way it is going to work for both cases of reference type or primitive type is going to work as follows. Param, the variable over here, is going to be assigned to the value of arguments. And notice that it's not symmetric. It must be this particular direction. We are assigning the value of arg into param rather than the other way around. The other way around is simply wrong. It's not the case, right? Just notice that. And this is going to be the case for both primitive type and reference type. So that's something you want to keep in mind. Okay? Let me just write it down. So this is going to be for both cases of primitive type and reference types.